Okay, greetings and salutations to all of the Conscious Approach fans out there. Thank you for tuning in to another stream. As always, my name is JV Wins, and that is the boy Dogon SS. Enjoying this wonderful August the 1st evening. Thank you for supporting the channel. As always, if you have not done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you think about the commentary in these videos. Hit the like button, and if you're new to what we do on the Conscious Approach channel here on YouTube, go ahead and check out our other videos. We like to kick this logical stuff each and every week. So join the tribe. We thank everybody who has subscribed for the support as we continue to crank things up. And we hope that you continue to join us along for the ride. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave a comment, let us know what you think about the commentary in the video. We do like to engage people in the comments, so keep that stuff coming, man, because we get a kick out of this. It's a lot of fun. Now, with that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and get started with our first topic of the evening. Andrew Tate. I would say this is maybe the third time that we have discussed Andrew Tate on this channel, which would probably qualify him as a friend of the channel. So we have several friends. We have several friends of the channel, and I think at this point, Andrew Tate would qualify as a friend of the channel. Andrew Tate recently sat down with Candace Owens, another individual who tends to get criticized for her views, even though I feel like she's just an individual who thinks for herself. But these days, people like that are in short supply. And when you think for yourself, people tend to not like you for that because most people are slaves, quite frankly. Candace Owens has a podcast. It has a lot of viewers. A lot of people tune in to hear what she has to say. And Andrew Tate was a guest on her show very recently. And they got into a litany of things. It was a 3-hour long video, tons of gems in this thing. So I strongly encourage everybody, maybe you can't watch all 3 hours at once, but definitely check in from time to time, watch a chunk here, watch a chunk there. They get into a lot of things that if you are a reasonable person, at the very most, you would find some of the stuff that they say disagreeable, but certainly nothing to hate them over. But it's a 3-hour long conversation. They get into a lot of stuff. They drop a lot of gems. The thing that we wanted to touch on in particular coming out of that interview is comments that Tate made with respect to, I guess we can say, like the sexual marketplace, social media, and all of this good stuff, and how that has contributed to some of the issues that we are currently observing in society when it comes to relationships and marriages in particular, and just the general dynamic between men and women. This is the type of thing that we talk about on this channel regularly, and Tate lends his voice to that as someone who gives his perspective on these issues from a man's point of view, which is something that I think is lacking and sorely needed more of. So we're going to go ahead and play this clip from that interview. It's just maybe a couple minutes long, not the whole thing, obviously. And all relevant links will be in the description of this video, as always. So if you want to check the whole thing out, click the link in the description of this video so that you can open up a new link, watch the whole thing. 3 hours, in my opinion. They get into a lot of stuff that is worth listening to, in my opinion. So again, this is Tate touching on the stuff that we talk about. I like to phrase it as the sexual marketplace. That's what Kevin Samuels used to call it, and how it contributes to some of the issues that men are currently facing, and how these issues that are currently facing men also tend to have a degradations effect on like the rest of society. Might be a grandiose term, but for lack of a better word, society. So here's what Tate had to say, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Fair use. Fair use.
Company. And I think I can anticipate the question you're going to ask. How do I reconcile with the fact that I used to produce pornography or degree pornographic content?
And now men are writing to you like, how do I?
And now men are trying to escape it.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. There's a few different ways I can answer that question. I think the first way I'll answer it is if you own a liquor store and an alcoholic comes in and you refuse to sell him alcohol, does he stop being an alcoholic?
No.
He just goes and buys from someone else. So that's the cop out answer. The cop out is, well, these people who are addicted are always going to be addicted, regardless of whether I did it or not. So that's the cop out answer. But the second answer I can give, which I think is more detailed and probably more nuanced, is one, I intimately understand the relationship between men and these websites. I've had and seen men give away their life savings to girls they've never met. I've watched and I've seen it. And I actually think a lot of the insights I give, a lot of the things I tell the world about the male mental health crisis, about men being so constantly lonely, about how important it is to build yourself into a high value man, about how money alone is not enough. I explain all these things. A lot of these are lessons from the webcam days. I saw dudes who had a whole bunch of money, no other attributes, and they ended up on these websites spending hundreds of thousands of dollars because they didn't have anything else. So I think I learned a lot of important life lessons, and I do my best to try and pass them on to people. But I guess also, and this is the final answer I want to give about this whole subject, is that I do think I can take the question you're asking and reverse engineer it and use it against the people who are trying to attack me for it. My answer to it would be, how do you sit and want to criticize me for being involved in the production of pornography 10 or 11 years ago if you're involved in the consumption of it? Because you're creating a market for it. So anybody who wants to sit and say that I did things wrong, that's fine. You're allowed to throw stones. But if you're in a glass house, if you have ever signed up to an OnlyFans account, if you have Instagram, if you're following these models on Instagram who you don't know, who are showing their tits and ass all day, if you've watched porn, if you fancy or think some beautiful woman on a movie, if you're going to live in lust yourself and you're funding this entire industry, you're downstream, you're at the bottom of it, how can you then take the moral high ground on the person who's producing it? That doesn't make sense to me. So if you've totally abstained from pornography your entire life and you've never looked at it ever, and you've never been involved with it ever, and you're a perfect person and you want to come along and say what I did was wrong, that's fine. But I don't think most people who are complaining can even say that. I don't think they can. And I will once again state this, and I state this as a matter of almost fact. The level of investigation I've gone under, the level.
Interesting.
All right. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And that's pretty much the gist of it. So, I've lamented on this many times on this channel whenever we have had relationship topics. I guess we can sort of classify this as a pseudo relationship topic. That's how I would think of it, because that's kind of how he has made his name. He's garnered his audience largely off of men understanding the importance of living their truths and taking some of the power that is being attempted to having it stripped away from them by the modern mainstream media machine, I would call it. So, what did you think about Tate's comments there? A lot of nuggets you can pull from that, a lot of different directions that you can go.
There is a lot of directions. I think the main thing that I'm gathering from all of this is, I wouldn't have answered it like that if I were him. I mean, granted, he didn't have time to prep for these, I'm sure. So he's just, off the seat of his pants, just saying things. But when we start looking at stuff like morality and all of these things, morality is it's a social construct. So when we're looking at somebody who sells drugs, because that's what pornography is. So if he sells drugs on one hand, but he uses the drug money to fund an operation to get people off of drugs, that is a wild dynamic. But and like what he said was, hey man, people were going to do the drugs anyway. I might as well sell some drugs to make money to do the things that I want to do. So it does seem a little hypocritical, but what standard are we really holding this guy to? So I really don't think that this is like, it's hypocritical to a degree, but at the same time, I really don't think it's that big of a deal because people are going to consume this stuff. I thought about getting into that industry. I ain't gonna lie, man. Being a dealer, not a person that's in the film. I thought about getting into that industry because it's such easy money. That you can set that and forget it, and have a steady stream of income. Yeah, I've considered it, but I didn't want to be a drug dealer. But this guy, when you hear him talk, he's highly competitive. His whole thing is getting to the bag. He already has a view towards women that could seem unhealthy. And so this was like right up his alley. Because he really comes off as a guy who does hate women. There's a difference between standing on masculinity and some of the stuff he says. And I'm all for being manly and stuff like that, but there's also a degree of his rhetoric that's what am I trying to get at? There's a degree of his rhetoric that comes off like who hurt you kind of thing. And so that's why I take a lot of what he says with a grain of salt, because of that kind of background that I feel like he has. So nevertheless, he comes out with all of that type of ammo. So him getting into an industry where he's exploiting women to get paid, he doesn't like women anyway. So who cares? So that's why I feel like that's why it doesn't really bother him. So he's going to get paid. And then on top of that, he wants to preach a form of masculinity that's needed in the world, but it's hyper. But the reason why people are longing for this hyper form of it is because they've been starved of any kind of masculinity. So in comes Tate to save the day for all of the people out there who've never had a voice. But now they put this guy on a pedestal and he's speaking as if he's the next coming of Jesus. And everything that he says is truth and gospel. A lot of it is pretty cool. But some of the stuff that he says is eyebrow raising and going, I can't follow a doctrine like this. So be that as it may, him being a hypocrite, I say all that to say that him being hypocritical is not a surprise. We're not dealing with somebody who have high noble causes. And that's why I brought up the whole thing about morality in the beginning, is because people like to think that morals get people paid. And I'll tap on this when we get it talking later, but morals don't get you paid. This world is built on criminal enterprises and scammers. And this guy here is a scammer. That's why you know his name. And that's why he gets put on, because he's a ruthless person that'll snatch anybody down in order to get to the top. So I say all that to say is, why not exploit people to get paid? Why not sit here and act like you're some noble guy, but you're getting all this money on the back end? He's just finessing the world because he's a chess guy. So be mindful of any of his rhetoric. It's pretty cool. Most of it I do lean towards, but some of it is like, I don't know about that. But how about you, bro? I know I said a lot there, but this is a wide topic. So how about you? How do you feel about this?
This was very interesting to me. So to touch on the point that you made about him being a hypocrite, he's as much of a hypocrite as rappers are. Rappers who used to directly damage the community through their activities and then got into music. And now that they have gotten into music and they have stepped away from that life, or at least the perception of them being in that life, because a lot of them didn't really do it for real. They want to do positive things in the community and help build things and help people and provide money and resources. And so one can surmise, if you wanted to go there, that a lot of these individuals who are now trying to help the community played a direct hand in destroying it. So in essence, that would make them a critical, very much like Tate today, who is trying to teach men how to be men. One can surmise that he perhaps is a hypocrite because he used to be a dealer in the sexual marketplace. And now he's no longer a dealer in the sexual marketplace, and he's trying to teach men the way out of the hamster wheel of being engulfed in the sexual marketplace. And, I get that. I tend to be of the belief that even if you have a checkered past, if you are doing things in a righteous way in the present and you sort of are reformed and want to speak on how bad it is and how much of an issue it is, I'm willing to grant you that levity. I don't do that with rappers so much because, when it comes to these rappers,
Mhm.
they can they can be out in the community doing positive things in the present, but then they still go into the booth and make an album with gun and drug bars. And so it's just like, okay, bro, either you're evolved and you're no longer doing, drug and gun bars, or you're still one of these rappers out here doing drug and gun bars, but you also want to help the community. That there's a dissonance there that I can't reconcile when it comes to the music people, when it comes to the rappers. Um, when it comes to Tate, I compartmentalize a lot of his messaging. When it comes to this, I'm in agreement with him only because of my direct experience with what he is saying. To me, this particular aspect of his rhetoric is reasonable and it resonates. When he talks about men needing to be men and needing to be masculine and embrace the power that is being taken away from them, but he does it through the lens of talking about this type of stuff that he just talked about. To me, I find that to be profound because, in my opinion, it is at the heart of what has constituted to the complete and utter degradation of modern relationships, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And it takes an individual who is willing to think for himself to have his light bulb moment and realize you do not have to contribute to this, because you might be an individual amongst a sea of millions upon billions of other men who are doing this. And so you, as an individual man doing it, you might not think is that big of a deal, because what harm am I doing to the world by following these Instagram models or following OnlyFans chicks or sending them money, or going to the strip, or following strippers, trying to fly strippers out, spending my money trying to get them on flights to fly them out to my city, or going
You
into the strip club and paying how much money to try and get a stripper to go out on a date with me. You might think that as an, you might think that as, and that goes on in
Oh yeah.
droves.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like you as an individual man might think I'm doing this. What's the big deal? But you have to understand that you as an individual are contributing to this madness, and
Mhm.
you, along with the collective of other men who are doing this, are willfully relinquishing the power that you have by submitting to the sexual marketplace.
Mhm.
And I remember when I had my light bulb moment. I remember to this day. I was maybe 25, 26. I was in the gym and I was working out. And my Instagram was full of these women who I was following. Now, I've never really been a commenter too much on social media because I think that that's kind of weird and goofy. But they used to get my views. They would get my views and they would get my likes. They never got DMs or comments, but they would get the views and they would get the likes.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there on the ab machine, trying to get my six pack, because in my mind I'm thinking maybe I can get a girl like that if I got better abs, right? Because this is what the sexual marketplace does to a man's brain.
Uh,
And I had a light bulb moment, and I said, uh, I said, bro, I was talking to myself, and I'm like, why does this woman deserve the currency of your follow? Who is she? What is she contributing to society? And why is it that she gets to become financially free just because she exists in the world? Like, that should not be enough. Unless you were born into wealth because you're born into it from a wealthy family, you should not, and I understand that there's no such thing as fair. That's why I don't use the word. Fairness doesn't exist. You get what you earn through the work that you put in and what you're willing to do and the lengths that you're willing to go to. Hence your point about morality or lack thereof paying, which is 100% spot on. That's correct. But just the principled person in me, the principled man in me, felt some type of way about the fact that I was granting this woman a form of currency that is valuable to her. To these individuals, likes and comments, views and follows are valuable to them. because attention is a new form of currency that eventually leads to tremendous amounts of actual currency for them. And they get it not because they're actually contributing to the world, but because I, in my meekness and my inability to understand the power that I have, decided that I was going to afford her that currency by granting her access to my follow. And there was something that was in me that was just like speaking to me, saying that there's something that's not all the way right about this. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm smarter than her, more talented than her. I'm better than her. I'm a better human being than her. All she does is look good and exists in the world. That's all she is. So why does she get the currency of my follow? And at the moment that I had this light bulb moment, I went into my phone and I unfollowed every single last one of these women, all of them. Some of whom I had followed at that point for a couple of years, because I said to myself, if I am not going to commit to behaviors, or rather, I said to myself, if this particular behavior doesn't result in a tangible benefit to me, I should not adhere to it, period. So unless this chick is going to appear in my bed, unless she's going to pick up the phone when I call her, unless she's going to answer my messages, which she's not, there's no tangible benefit to me following her. Hence, I should not be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. Now, I was fortunate enough to reach that light bulb moment because I was raised in an environment which instilled in me the values of living a principled existence, having a code to live by. And we talk about the importance of men needing to live by a code all the time on this channel. And this is an example of that. But there are far too many dudes out here who don't live by a code, and they consume. You talk about consumption all the time. And they willfully contribute to the sexual marketplace. And that contribution is completely throwing off the balance of power between men and women to unconscionably unreasonable levels, in my opinion. And the only way that you can bring it back to a state of balance is if you, as a man, understand the power that you have and realize there's power in the value of your currency. And you don't need to grant it to anyone who doesn't deserve it. And these women who do porn, who do OnlyFans, who strip, who don't give a shit about you and only exist to patronize you in such a way that they can brainwash you into giving you their hard-earned, into giving them your hard-earned money, they don't deserve it. And so a lot of what Tate has to say oftentimes does come off as a bit extreme or maybe just heavy-handed. But as you said in your opening remarks, I think the reason why that is effective is because there is such a dearth and lack of true masculinity in the media landscape that there's just this void yearning to be filled. And so an extremist such as him can fill that void and it be perceived as acceptable because he's all you got. It's just like it's the Donald Trump factor with why so many people gravitate towards his rhetoric. People who love him, support him, not so much because they feel like he's this smart person who has all the best ideas, but because they feel like he is the closest thing they have to an individual who is speaking on behalf of the ideals that they care about. So people are going to support sometimes, at times, extremist rhetoric. And so, does Tate lean into extremist rhetoric from time to time? Perhaps. I wouldn't disagree with that. But there's such a concerted effort to bully men into being, as he calls it, eunuchs, to being not assertive, to being diminutive, to being subservient to women, to just being ashamed and feeling embarrassed to not only be masculine, but to express masculine points of view. And that issue is why he has been able to proliferate his sound and his voice so much. But there's a place for it because the things that he's saying aren't exactly off base. There's truth to that general idea. That general idea, there's truth to it. So my personal experience, what he said there resonates with me. So many of these guys don't understand the power that they are relinquishing by succumbing to this machine. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. You guys are out here in the world wondering why these women are ignoring you, why they're not respecting you, why they don't respond to anything you're doing, why you feel that some of their standards seem to be unreasonable. If you follow even one Instagram model, if you subscribe to even one OnlyFans account, if you spend even a quarter of your monthly earnings in a strip club, you're part of the reason why this situation is out of whack. You are. It's as simple as that. And I think it was the last pod that we did. You brought up the point, or maybe it was the Jonah Hill topic. It was one of the ones that we did, and you talked about how guys just need to collectively band together and gain the confidence to turn the attention off. We got to turn that off. It's a valve that needs to be shut off, and you'd be amazed what can happen. But until that happens, the sexual marketplace will continue to be proliferated. There's no reason why people like Larsa Pippen should be as well off as she is. There's no reason for that. Other than alimony and divorce and child support payments, there's no reason why an individual like that should be able to come up the way that she is. There's none. But you got people like Malik Beasley and Michael Jordan's son who are willing to date women like that. You're ceding power to women like that when they don't deserve it. And I think Andrew Tate is saying that's the shit that needs to stop. And y'all can get mad at me all day long because I had a cam site, but how many of y'all are running around following chicks on Instagram, commenting on them, DMing them, trying to fly them out, trying to get them on your show so that you can try and parlay that into smashing, or going to the strip club, trying to get money and dates out of strippers, subscribing to OnlyFans pages. And he might have been the dope dealer who was selling them this stuff. And, again, that's a fair criticism to make. But at the end of the day, the words in and of themselves, to me, are palpable. And more of these dudes need to listen to this stuff.
No, I agree. It's a fair point, that he's making, but, it's still a thing of, should I cross that bridge? He was smart enough to go, I'm going to cross this bridge. This guy's not dumb. So he knew what he was doing before he did it. And so, yeah, people can grow and evolve. But the point is that he knew what he was doing when he was doing it. He knew that these guys were suckers from day one. Somebody getting up his whole life savings. Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So he was that guy. And those people sleep. And for him, he slept good at night after doing that to people. So that's why I was talking about as far as like the whole morality thing. This guy doesn't have. This guy do whatever it takes to get on, to get cash or whatever. So that's why I was like, So yeah, that's why it's kind of weird where it's like, the dealer's coming to us and like, hey man, don't do drugs, And so yeah, he was an ex-dealer, or whatever, but it's still value to what he's saying though. So I'm not discrediting him. But and the value to it is valid in what you were saying as far as, yeah, these guys are, they're throwing stones, but they sitting there and they got a OnlyFans account and all this other jive. So I had a professor that gave us this analogy about dominoes. And so everybody likes to look at the last domino and go, oh, shame on you for signing up for that OnlyFans account. But nobody looks at the domino that hit before that, the domino before that, and the hand that pushed the first one. And so you got to look back. This guy who signed up for that OnlyFans account and sending money to a TikTok NPC, my Lord. the guy that's doing that, man, what are we doing? The guy that's doing that he's already done. And now we're looking at that last piece of how could you be there? And it's like, man, you don't understand. And so this person has been exposed to all kinds of systemic mind control from youth. I lived in a world where things were not these smartphones. So when I see this is my light bulb moment. When I'm scrolling through Instagram, because I'm following them too, but they're all doing the same thing. They'll sit there and they'll just turn around and start shaking their ass. And they'll just turn around and start shaking it. I'm like, what is it? Then I was like, what am I watching? What is this? And I was like, I'm not, I don't know. It just felt stupid. And then I just got completely turned off by it. They look dumb. They look ridiculous. So I grew up in a world where that kind of behavior, I can look at it and go, this is ridiculous. These newer people grew up in a world where that's normal.
Yeah.
That's like looking in the mirror.
Ridiculous is normal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so now they're like, oh, well, whoop-de-whoop. And so now we'll see them do some dumbass shit like donate money to if somebody's acting like a robot. And then you go, well, how did you get here? It's like, bro, they're on a different program, dude. And for the people that are of age, 30 plus that are doing this ridiculous stuff, hell, I don't know what the hell they've been exposed to, but they've been exposed to some type of trash. So the point I'm trying to say with all of that is that these guys that are doing this thing, they've got so much backlog of trauma that you telling them to fix this last thing, so much pressure on that. Mm-hmm. This got to get relieved. This got to get relieved. This got to get relieved. They need therapy. And so Andrew Tate is acting like an online therapist, but again, this guy be coming out of left field sometime. And I used to be a young cat that watched people online or on TV and looked up to them. And when I was so impressionable, because I'm just trying to learn, I'm taking everything. And as I say, as a grain of salt, it was bigger than a grain, through hindsight. And it's like, damn, I'm listening to this guy and I'm going down this wrong rabbit hole for all these years. And so there is a way to be masculine and domineering without being him. And that's my issue with him. I wouldn't hang out with this guy. And I don't want to see a generation of people growing up like this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So this is not healthy. So he had, that's my whole gripe with this dude. But this whole situation, bro, it is a mess. And like I said, there's nobody, you can be hollering until you blue in the face. They're going to have their own light bulb moment, their own aha moment. You can say it. I mean, I'll say it too, because the seeds got to get planted somehow to let them know, hey, bro, this is not cool. And so we can do that, but that's all we can do, because there's a lot of pressure to make somebody take. They got bills to pay. They got food to eat. This food is expensive out here, and I know you ain't got it, and you still sending her $15. What are you doing?
Per creator, because you have to imagine, if you have several subscriptions, you're sending each one of them money.
What are you doing?
You're sending them money during the creation of the content, because I guess you believe that you're in a sense of community, and then on top of that, you're paying a subscription fee each month. It's a bill. This stuff has become a bill, bro. And you're 100% correct, and I hear you. That's why, like, when it comes to people, like you also said something that was funny but also true, when you were like, I'll be agreeing with these people, but I don't agree with them. And it's like, that's how I feel about these individuals. People like him, people like even Samuel sometimes, same thing. Because Samuel's used to be tinged with a little bit of woman hates at times, it felt like. As reasonable as he came off. Some of these other guys, I won't mention some of these platforms on his channel, but you have an idea of who I'm thinking of. They create they have these huge followings because they have a lot of these metaphorically castrated eunuch men who follow them, who don't know any better, and so they believe this stuff is gospel. So for me, it's like, I just take tidbits of the rhetoric and I extrapolate it to my personal experience, and I say, hey, listen, this is actually happening. Now, if you can separate message from messenger, this is what's actually happening.
Oh,
Here are
yeah.
some constructive ways that you can go about trying to reverse it. And like you said, that's really all that we can do sitting here from our seat. And so I do get that, but it's problematic. It really is. And there's layers and layers of psychosis that you have to unravel
Yeah,
before
dude.
you can even reach the source of trying to fix that. Because a 25-year-old man who's been socially conditioned since he was like 7 or 8 years old to believe that he has no power in the world, it takes a lot to undo that. And so it's a no-brainer that he's now a young adult and thinks that it is completely normal to spend money on OnlyFans. It's ridiculous. And the idea that you wouldn't seek that in person because it's somehow an inconvenience to you or just simply easier to do it this way is a sad reality. And it really does annoy me that some of these content creators who have made a name for themselves off of the manosphere, even though really what they're preaching is counterproductive, have been able to, to me, they're no different than the drug dealers who are the women who do this stuff. They're kind of the same, two sides of the same coin. But some of the rhetoric that they employ at times can be used constructively. And so I guess that's where I'm coming at it from. But otherwise, I see him for what he is. And so it is what it is. You got to take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt. But is there an element out here that is actively trying to turn men into eunuchs
Yes.
and, have them be metaphorically castrated? 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And you guys just need to get off that narcotic. You just got to get off that narcotic.
Hey, man. I don't know what to say. Just I don't know how to tell these people to get help because this generation is depressed, man. These are some depressed that we grew up in a depressed ass generation. And these kids are more depressed than we were.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're depressed is because they don't have anything. They don't have nothing to strive for. They don't have anything to really go get. It's and they have everything they need, to survive the next day. So there's this whole, what's my purpose thing going on. And so when there's this, where's my purpose thing, with a myriad of other things, an idle mind. And so these people are bored.
Yeah.
And so trying to tell this dude, hey man, cut that out. In the mind, they're gonna go, well, what am I gonna do to fill horny time? I got 4 hours of horny time. Because they're scrolling through TikTok. You scrolling through TikTok, then you go through Instagram. You probably got a, whatever account, and the whole thing's booty because you're following booty over here, booty over there, booty over there. When are you giving your stuff a break? So that's what I'm saying, man. So when they're constantly on that rush and they're used to that bump, then you go, hey, stop taking those drugs. And they're gonna go, all right, I'll get clean. I promise. As soon as you walk out, bro. You know what I'm saying? They say, man, I'm sorry. So it's like, nah, man, I don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? Just know that there's a brighter side, guys. And if you struggling with this, and just like how you said, bro, just know that you're contributing to this modern woman syndrome with you gassing up these basic females just because you're just trying to, hey man, I'm just trying to do something. And then now you sending her all kinds of stuff, DMing her, she's stretching it out, stretching your attention out. Damn, man, I thought this was gonna be, nah, bro, she dragging this out. And you're gassing her up. Now she thinks when she hit the streets, it's this and this and that. Then if you try to meet her in person, she's got like 6 guys online she busy with. So she ain't got time for you. So just understand that we are contributing to the madness. And so we always hollering about the ladies being accountable. So it's time for the guys to be accountable for all of their website searches. and you are what you attract, bro. Clean that up in your life, you're gonna have a cleaner situation. You riding dirty on them websites, you're gonna be riding dirty with a sexy red, I'm sure, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you need to cut. Yeah, the online simping really has to stop. It really does. It really does. I noticed that this was a problem like what 2023. This to me I saw as a problem like 8 years ago. Now I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or toot my horn, but I saw it coming, and it's only gotten worse. So
boy,
it has gotten exponentially worse. So and y'all, and then a lot of y'all ladies suffer from this as well. You wonder why you can't get a guy to only be interested in you and cheat and stop cheating on you or dealing with other women if that's a thing that bothers you. Well, if only but so much of the population of the men are actually actively seeking women in person, you can imagine that they have a plethora of options because all the rest of these guys are in their dungeon on their phones and iPads and laptops. It's just a sad situation. It does. This is one of those things that really rubs me. Yeah, yeah. Y'all need to unfollow these chicks, man. Unfollow them. Stop following them. Don't like the pic. Stop following them. Get off that narcotic. Just get off.
I asked, I said, well, why you still got Snapchat? What you doing on there? Ladies, what y'all doing on Snapchat? Let me know, man. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I had heard about some feature on there. I was like, wait, what? You can see where people are at? Where people are
yeah. You can turn it off though. You can make yourself in ghost mode so that you can't be tracked. But yeah, there's a feature where your location is right there in the app. Yeah.
That shit's sketchy, man. Hey, what y'all doing on there? I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But yeah, man. Hey, wild times, man. Stay safe, guys. Stay safe, man.
Stay safe, and appreciation to Candace Owens and Andrew Tate for the content.
Yeah.
We pulled that clip off of World Star, so
fair use.
Should be free use. Yeah, it should be fair use.
Fair use.
It should be fair use. But be that as it may, fellas, get off that narcotic. You have more power than what you know. You just need to understand that and learn how to wean yourself off of this stuff because you are ceding power to women who don't deserve it, and it's creating your relationship struggles. So, or at least it's contributing greatly. It's contributing greatly to your relationship struggles.
Yeah, get off the dope.